Good evening. My name's Forney Maroney. I'm the Deputy Principal and Head of Secondary here at Calvin Christian School.
And I'm Stella Carmichael, and I'm the Head of Students at Calvin Christian School. It is great for you. It is great to see you guys here tonight for the Senior Secondary Information Evening, which is being live streamed from our staff room here at Calvin. Thank you for joining us. It is great to see you here. If you want to say hello in the comments, we would love to hear from you. So, Bonnie, tell us a little bit about what you do here at Calvin.
Yeah, well, as the Head of Secondary, I'm involved in many aspects of life here at Calvin from years 7 to 12. I have a particular interest in the academic program, and along with the heads of department, we oversee the program from 7 to 12. And for those in year 10, 11 and 12, that incorporates the TAS subjects as well as VET subjects and other courses that students choose here at Calvin. And can you tell us a bit about your role, Stel?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the Head of Students, which means I head up pastoral care for students from years 7 through to grade 12. Really on a day-to-day basis, it means that I'm involved in caring for people, for the well-being of our students and for our community here at Calvin.
Well, we're hoping that this evening's program will provide the information that you might need as you're preparing for years 10, 11 and 12 here at Calvin Christian School. These are really important years for students, and we know there's a lot of information that you'll need to know about subjects and pathways and just being a student in the senior secondary years at any school, but particularly for our students here at Calvin and Emmanuel students who might be joining us and others who might be interested.
So welcome. It is lovely to have you joining us. We're hoping that tonight we might be able to answer some of the questions that you might have about what life is like here at Calvin in the senior secondary years. You'll find it in the comments box. If you want to write a question, we will try to answer that a little bit later on.
So tonight we're going to have a little bit of video content. We're going to have to hear from one of our current Year 11 students, and we're going to have the question and answer session. I do really strongly recommend that you download the Senior Secondary Course Handbook. It's available on our website, which is calvin.tas.edu.au/senior-secondary. And there's a lot of useful information on that website, including some videos about some confusing terms like TASC, ATAR, TE, as well as some students talking about their pathways and the subjects they chose, contact information, and a real lot of useful things for students that are coming to join us here at Calvin for Senior Secondary.
Great. Thanks, Bonnie. We're going to watch a short video now, and then after that video we'll be welcoming one of our Year 11 students, Luke, to come and tell us a little bit more about life at Calvin.
Thank you for considering Calvin Christian School for senior secondary education. Why Calvin? We think there are a number of reasons. Firstly, we view students as whole people, and we care about their academic, spiritual and social well-being. At Calvin, we want students to be known by their classmates and by their teachers. We have dedicated, experienced teachers who care deeply about their students and their subjects. Our small classes allow for more personalised learning. At Calvin, we provide a Year 11-12 common room and a welcoming library space so that students can socialise and study in warm and comfortable areas around the school. We are proud of our CoCurricular program and student leadership opportunities. So how should you develop your pathway of study at Calvin? Well, every good journey requires planning and discussion. Our Calvin Senior Secondary Course Handbook is the place to start with this. You will need an opportunity to start those discussions with your family. Some other people who will be useful to connect with are your teachers, your heads of department and the careers counsellor. One thing we don't assume is that this journey will be a purely academic pathway for all students. The pathway could include academic, vocational or personal outcomes. We believe that whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. At Calvin, we have a strong focus on planning of your pathway from year 10 onwards. This maximises learning, enjoyment and future direction, and it provides the best possible start for university, TAFE, the workplace and for life more generally. Whether you're watching this video as a Year 9 student thinking about Year 10, or a Year 10 or 11 student thinking about Year 11 and 12, the Senior Secondary Handbook and the Senior Secondary page on the Calvin website have important information about our academic and pastoral programs at Calvin. On the website, there's a film to clarify terms and concepts that are commonly confusing to students like TASC, TCE, TE score and ATAR. There's a film of current students describing their pathway and the reasons why they chose the subjects they did at Calvin in years 10 to 12. And there are other resources and contact details to help connect you with the information you need for your senior secondary studies at Calvin. We look forward to partnering with you as years 10 to 12 students at Calvin next year.
Well, welcome back. Tonight I'm here with Luke Hartog, who is a current Year 11 student at Calvin. Welcome, Luke.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Now, cast your mind back to pre-coronavirus times. Can you tell us a little bit about what it's like being a student at Calvin? And in particular, what's it been like to come from Year 10 and move into Year 11?
Well, it's really good before coronavirus.
Yeah.
The day would kind of start off with homeroom with about 15 to 20 people from grade 11 to 12, or in your 8-year groups if you're younger, with 1 or 2 teachers, and they would kind of start off your day, maybe do a devotion, and you get to know people just a little bit more in your homeroom. You then have your periods throughout the day with the subjects that you do. From grade 10 to grade 11, I really liked it because you could start to choose subjects that apply a bit more to your interests and your future pathways. And I think when you're doing these more specific subjects, you have smaller classes, and your teacher gets to know you a bit better. Your teacher can help you a lot more, a bit one-on-one, and you get to know people as a grade 11 in grade 12 as well, and you kind of have that connection there, and we have a common room which we all hang out in and have fun.
Yeah, great. Now, in terms of your subjects, what factors influenced your decision making as you chose your subjects for Year 11 and 12?
Well, after I leave school, I like to go to uni and study courses on like health and medical, and so I wanted to do subjects that would help me when I do my degrees there, and subjects that I was also just interested in, that I was curious about. When I was thinking about doing subjects, my parents and older cousins and family members who had done those subjects and enjoyed them recommended them to me, and so that's one of the reasons I did them, and I've been really enjoying them so far.
Okay, great. So the academics aside, can you tell us a little bit about things that you might have done with leadership or community service at Calvin?
Well, currently I've been allowed to participate in the student council, which helps the school, and it tries to create a better atmosphere and experience for students. In previous years, I've been part of the Building Bridges program, which Calvin has offered, which has senior students hang out and interact with grade 7s, and who that would welcome them into the school community, as high school can be a bit terrifying for some of them.
Yep.
And last year I was lucky enough to go on the Vanuatu mission trip, which flies a bunch of students over to Vanuatu, gives them resources like school supplies and pens and paper, and just hang out and learn from the Vanuatuan communities.
Excellent. Well, Luke, thank you so much for coming to join us today. All the best with the rest of your studies.
Thank you.
We're going to welcome back Mrs. Forney Maroney, and we're going to be starting to look at some of the questions that you might have been putting forward in the comments section. Welcome back, Forney.
Thank you.
Now, a really common question that lots of students ask at this stage is, how do I choose subjects? How do I know which subjects are going to be right for me? If someone said that to you, what would your response be?
Yeah, look, we encourage them to consider a number of factors in making that decision. Obviously, some students know what they want to do post-school, and so they're working towards a particular career, a particular job, and that becomes a little bit easier for them. A lot of students don't know what they want to do, so we would encourage them to be looking broadly at subjects of interest to them, maybe in their skill set, within their skill set, but also to try to get things like their TCE, which is quite important to many students. Perhaps working towards a particular university degree might require an ATAR, and all of these terms are explained on our website and in the handbook. But for most students, a broad range of subjects that allows them to gain their TCE and keep their options open for a variety of university degrees or apprenticeships, TAFE courses, and so on. So it isn't locked in, and we do offer a broad range of subjects here at Calvin for our students there.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Got a question here from Fiona. Let me just where is it? She says, how can students find out more about school-based apprenticeships?
Yeah, school-based apprenticeships are a really great option where students can be doing some of their studies here at Calvin, but also working as an apprentice during that time. And the best way that we recommend is to book in to see our school counsellor, careers counsellor, who will be able to give some ideas there about how a student can get into that. But that's a really, really great option for those thinking about a trade.
Yeah, great. Question from Brett in Rugby. They are an Emmanuel family. Brett's curious about what co-curricular options might be available to a student in grade 11 and 12 at Calvin. What have we got on offer?
Yeah, so Luke mentioned some of the things that we do outside of the normal academic programs. So we have a number of leadership and service opportunities. We also run a co-curricular program both within the school day and school timetable and outside of that. On a Thursday afternoon, we have a co-curricular lesson where students are involved in co-curriculars ranging from sports to artistic to community service to options. We have craft type options, and that's a really great program to get students out of the classroom and meeting others from year 7 to 12. Plus we're involved outside of that in a number of sporting activities and debating, tournament of minds, and many other programs with other schools and in the community.
Great, excellent. A question's come up which I think I might answer if that's okay, from Jono. He's asking what kind of pastoral support structure is in place to support a student studying in year 10 to 12. Now at Calvin we want every student to be known. We want every student to have a sense of belonging at school. They're not just a face in the crowd, but they have people who look out for them. I think that's really important. We have smaller class sizes, which means you really get to know your peers and your teacher. We have a head of year 11 and a head of year 12, and they provide some really important pastoral support. Sometimes life in senior school is great, but sometimes it's really hard work as well. And when students are faced with things that create greater anxiety, we really try to travel alongside them to provide whatever support we can. It's probably more clear now, more than ever, is that schools are such an important place where we don't want to just see students grow academically, but we also want to see them become well and fulfilled and really enjoying life as well, getting to know each other and having good, solid relationships while they're at school as well.
Great.
Let me just check for a few more questions. We've also got a few questions about career counselling. What if I can't get a subject at Calvin, but I really want to stay at the school? What would you say to a student who said that?
So once in a while we get a student with a very particular subject that we are not able to offer. And we have worked really hard to find alternative ways for them to be able to stay at Calvin and still do that subject. Most of the time, students are able to look at a pathway from year 10 to 11 and 12 and still be able to get there with the subjects that we offer. Now, we actually offer 32 different subjects in that senior secondary space, which is a really broad range of subjects. And the handbook does show that there's a pathway even from year 10 to 11 to 12 in most areas. So there are either 2 or 3 courses that could fit together to create a pathway. So by looking at different configurations of those subjects, then most students are able to achieve a pathway that is suitable for them in what they want to do post-school. So we just would encourage students to talk with us and to keep their options open, perhaps being a bit more flexible, because we do offer a broad range of subjects. And we will also always look at what students want to do and try to fit that in. Obviously, as a smaller school, we're not able to make all subjects work, but when there is an issue, we will look for ways to get students the subjects that they're interested in.
Great. I know that there are some people watching who are going to Emmanuel Christian School at the moment over in Rugby. We've got some questions coming in about if I wanted to come into Calvin for year 11 and 12, how would I get there? Are there buses? How do we actually get from one spot to another?
Yeah, the mornings are interesting here at Calvin, and buses coming in from many different directions. And yes, there is a bus that does come across from Rugby and from the Eastern Shore. Students coming from the city, from down the Huon and down the Channel, as well as all over the Kingborough area. So there are many bus services available around the greater Hobart area.
Okay, great. Just a question here from Eva, which is a really interesting question. I've thought about this a bit. In the light of COVID-19, what are we thinking about a mission trip next year and international trips? Certainly, I would love to know the date that we might be able to plan the Vanuatu trip. We could look into those opportunities that Calvin students have. We will continue to just work hard to make good decisions in that area. Obviously, we can't travel to Vanuatu this year, but we certainly will be very keen to see the mission trip happening just as soon as it's safe to do so. Excellent. Well, look, if you, we've got another question about, well, if I have any questions after this live stream, where do I go? What do we do if we want more information about our options at Calvin?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, looking at that senior secondary page on the Calvin website, there are a number of videos and the handbook, as well as some contact information. So there are the heads of department that can be emailed directly if it's a subject-based question. I'm always happy to take questions to do with more general life here at Calvin Secondary. There's also just a space on the website where you can fill in your inquiry and it'll be sent to the appropriate person. So please contact us. If we don't know what your questions are, we're not able to help, but we're certainly wanting to help and answer questions as broadly as we can. All right, so where to from here then? What do you do if you are interested in joining us here at Calvin for senior secondary years? Well, as we've mentioned a number of times, this senior secondary handbook has a lot of information, and I do encourage you to download that, have a look at it, look at the subjects and ask some questions about where you want to go in your pathway from year 10 to 12. Have a look at some of those videos on the website to do with things like TCE, ATAR, those really tricky things to get your head around to know what it is you need to do to finish with you in year 12, getting everything you need to move on to university, to work or to TAFE. And obviously contact us for any further information. If you are new to the school community, we are offering virtual school tours during the month of May, and hopefully with the restrictions lifted later in the year, we can have school tours if you're a new family.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you have learnt something and gotten something out of watching the live stream. Please don't forget to download the student handbook. And as Bonnie said, if you have any questions, if you want to discuss any of the things we've talked about further, we would love to hear from you. Now, to close this stream, we're going to watch a short video which will show a few more snapshots about life at Calvin.